Here's a little song I wrote. You might want to repeat it note for note. Don't worry. Be happy. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies with our special guests, Marie and Tim.
Hi.
I feel like last names have been said enough that I don't need to continue the last names.
Follow your heart.
That's what we're going with today.
Yes.
If a lot of people give a lot of feedback and they're like, I didn't like it, then we can go back. But
Okay.
Yeah.
this is the podcast where all four of us went and saw a movie at our local Regal Cinema. And now we're going to talk about it in the parking lot, in Matt's Honda Pilot. And we're going to discuss such things as, should you see this movie? Should you not see this movie? Should you wait for streaming? Should you just pass it all together? Should you hate it? Should you try to love it? Should you avoid it at all costs and move to a different country so you never have to deal with it ever again? These are all things we're going to discuss. I am Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy, and yes, we'll touch on at least one of those things. And we have an exciting new chapter in the Matt and Todd Podcast Chronicles. Todd's in the back seat.
Back seat.
Yes.
With Tim, who's always been in the backseat.
All right,
Yes.
pipe down, back seat, okay?
Yes. So it's exciting. We're trying something new.
Backseat Mafia.
You know.
Feel free to give us feedback.
Give us
Did
feedback.
you not like it? Did you like
If it
it?
sounds different.
Are you going to move to another country because you're so disgusted by it?
The sounds are wrong there.
These are things that you need to think about. Well, anyway, we did see a movie tonight, and this movie is called Don't Worry, Darling. And there are a few famous people in it, and we'll tell you about those people, and we'll also tell you about what the movie's about, without spoilers, of course, as always. So who's in it? Well, you've got your Florence Pugh, you've got your Harry Styles, you've got your Olivia Wilde, you've got your Chris Pine. I feel like I should know who Gemma Chan is.
You should.
And that's where my list
I would
ends.
say maybe Nick Kroll. Some
Nick
people
Kroll,
know.
yeah.
Okay,
Usually a comedian, but a serious role here.
gotcha. Which one was he?
He was the really enthusiastic fan of Frank.
Olivia
Oh,
Wilde's
okay.
husband.
Oh, I see. Did not know that.
Well, because he didn't do any. He wasn't very Nick Kroll in it.
Gotcha. Okay. Anyone else we need to mention?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Maybe it's worth mentioning that this is directed by Olivia Wilde.
Oh, yeah, that's a good thing to mention. She directed it. I think she produced it.
She starred in it. She's pulling a lot of
Yep.
jobs for this one.
That's right. She's
It's kind of her baby here.
wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah. Part of the
Yes.
controversy caught up in the release of this movie, too,
Yes.
that I'm sure we'll discuss. Or at least Tim
maybe
and I
we
will,
will.
because we've been paying attention to it.
Yeah, although
I know there was some
Big-
spitting and
overblown.
some feuding,
Yes.
but I don't really know the
I feel
details.
like you do that when you're worried about it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, I'm looking forward to spilling the juicy details.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
Good. Well,
Meanwhile-
before we do that, let me give you a brief synopsis of this film. So, the movie focuses around the Florence Pugh and Harry Styles characters. They are married in this movie, and they are living in this town that is somewhat utopian and also seems to be stuck in like the 1960s, I'm going to say. All the technology in the town is from the 1960s, and the cars and everything. At least that's what I'm gonna go with that.
Sure. Aesthetically, yes,
Yes.
it looks like that.
And so they're living in this town. It's kind of the secret town, like it's sort of, there's a lot of mystery surrounding the town, right? It's called the Town of Victory, I think, and all the men work at this like secret location and in town, and their jobs are secret. They can't talk about their jobs even to their wives, and yeah. So the movie is about what is really going on in this town, because there's something that seems a little off about the town. It seems almost maybe too perfect. Some people start to have like some weird episodes, shall we say, and so Florence Pugh's character is sort of trying to figure out what's going on a little bit. She's like, there's something something's off with this town, and I don't know what it is. Meanwhile, you have Chris Pine as the sort of founder and leader of the town. He's almost like this cult of personality type character, and he's kind of running the show, and like everyone adores him and like looks up to him and is trying to get in his good graces, in a very 1960s way.
Yeah,
like
that's good.
There's a lot of drinking, a lot of smoking that happens in this movie, which I guess maybe happened in the 60s a lot. I don't know.
Or at least aesthetically, that's what
That's
the picture.
that's what we've been led to believe.
Picture Mad Men.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
yeah.
That's
Like
the
this
world.
is the same kind of aesthetic and drinking
Yeah.
as Mad Men. Just no advertising.
Right.
Gotcha. So, so the movie sort of unfolds with Florence Pugh's character on this quest to figure out what's going on, and then and it builds throughout the movie, and then she starts kind of seeing things, and she thinks maybe she's going crazy, and other people are like, maybe you're going crazy, and then it gets to the point in the movie where she actually figures out what's going on, and I'm not going to reveal what's going on, of course, that would be a spoiler, but then it's about, well, now what is she going to do with this information? Is she going to try and escape this town? Is she going to, live on in normalcy and pretend she doesn't know what's going on? What's going to happen, really, is what goes from there. So I think that's kind of as much as I can dig into without.
And I think the trailers kind of hinted at that, so you're not spoiling anything.
Right. So we'll start with you, Todd. Your thoughts on Don't Worry, Darling.
I'll start by saying that I just wasn't the biggest fan of this movie, and I think there are things to point out that are good about this movie, but overall, the similarities between this movie and other movies that have done stuff like this that's in this movie, without like going too deep into it and trying to keep it spoiler free, most of the other movies have just done it better, in my opinion. But I'll point out some stuff that I enjoyed. I think aesthetically this movie is very good, as far as like some of the scenery, some of the shots are good, but I really liked the sets. Like I think this like kind of 1950s, 1960s, whatever, like just looking like it was all on point. I think as far as like I really felt like I had traveled through time in this movie. Like I felt like I was right in the I guess this is 60s. I felt like I was there. So that's good on them. I think the acting was varied depending on who was acting. I think the all-stars of this movie are Chris Pine and Florence Pugh. I think that they did so much in this movie, and they did it in different ways. Like Florence Pugh really acted a lot, and she like really had to bring it because she's kind of carrying this movie on her shoulders. And I think, to her credit, I think she brought it, and I think it's all on point for her. And I think Chris Pine just did so much with his role while actually doing very little. And I think that's what made him shine past everyone as far as acting goes. Like, I mean, he kind of plays a creepy guy, and like he does it so well. Yeah, like I mean, he did it even while not talking. Like, I mean, he like really chewed scenery. He really did it with his like facial expressions, and I mean, like it just was like it kind of was like an acting class. He was showing people of like, you can do so much and do so little. Whereas I felt like most of the other actors in this movie really had to go over the top in some scenes to like really convey what they were trying to convey, where he just did it so smoothly and with very little going on. So those are all good things. I had a problem with the script in this movie, and typically I don't ever pay attention enough to like the actual lines of this movie to have a problem with the script, but I just felt like some of the more important and emotional and a lot of things going on scenes were kind of just poorly written. And that stuff really does not ding in my mind when I'm watching movies. For some reason it just did, and I can't explain it. Like, I found myself rolling my eyes at several serious scenes over the lines that were being said, and that's a new feeling for me, honestly. I don't typically like care enough about that aspect of movies, so that's weird. It's just weird. It's putting me in a weird position right now. And I like I said, I just think the story, I think they tried, and I think other movies that have done it did it better, and they did it better while explaining themselves a lot better. This movie kind of gives you eventually what's going on, but it's still so much like shrouded in other mystery that, like, I didn't think I was going to leave this movie feeling fulfilled, but I definitely left not feeling fulfilled and being like, I'd like a little bit more information. Like, just because there was just so many things going on, and when they revealed, like, the secrets and stuff, you're like, okay, I get what the secret is, but I still need you to get me from point A to point B of how it all happened a little bit. And they just didn't do that. They wanted to keep it in kind of an ambiguous thing, and then, the ending is kind of ambiguous too. It's like, like, maybe help a brother out a little bit, and I didn't think they wanted to. So those other important questions, should you see this movie? I'm gonna err on the side of, like, who cares? Like, I don't think there's nothing in this movie that screams to me, oh, I gotta get like butts in the theater. Like, there's some movies that we've seen that we come and we do the podcast, and I'm like, man, everyone needs to see that movie. It was, like, so good. It was so great in this areas, and I don't think this movie hits any of those areas. And I'm like, people need to see this movie. Like, if you support the actors in this movie, or then go see it. If you kind of want a semi-interesting movie, I guess, and you just want to get out of the house, do it. Go for it. If you want to hit matinee and just not spend a lot of money, then sure. But does anyone need to go out of their way to see this movie in theaters? I wouldn't say so. Like, I'd say wait for streaming, or honestly just wait and not see it altogether. It's kind of
just wait forever.
Yeah. I don't. And it's not like it's gonna get like a cat's rating for me or anything like that. But it's still just like, for what it was going for, there's so many other great options that I'm like, this does not stack up to those. So why even try? So, I think that's going to be it for me, or else I could just continue to ramble on. But I will touch a little bit on the controversy of this movie, which I think has really, like, I mean, because all this, like, was kind of there, and it all started to come out, like, right before the movie dropped. And I think it's going to hurt the movie so much. Like, I think it not being a great movie is going to hurt it the most. But, so there's a lot going on. There's, like, a feud between Olivia Wilde and Florence Pugh, and there's, like, some accusations of people lying. Basically, it all stems from, originally Shia LaBeouf was cast as the Harry Styles role in this movie. And then Florence was like, I don't feel safe with Shia LaBeouf because of all the past transgressions that he's done. And so...
And honestly, we've seen them on film.
Yes.
And
so...
and knowing his method acting approach, I'm sure it was creepy.
Right. And the story goes, the story that everyone knew for the longest time was that Olivia Wilde was like, okay, I hear what you're saying, and I support you, so I'm going to recast to my, 20-something younger than me boyfriend, Harry Styles. And then it was like right before this movie came out, all this stuff came out of that she fought to keep Shia, like, in the movie, and like, she's lying. There's video evidence of her trying to convince Shia LaBeouf to not leave, and he's the one who actually left the movie because he was like, you guys don't need me, and it seems like there's too much stuff going on. And so it just makes her, like, this movie, I think, while could have been something to, like, be a high point in Olivia Wilde's life, is going to be a disaster for her. And I feel okay with that because Jason Sudeikis is America's sweetheart right now, and she broke his heart. So they were married, just in case anyone was curious. And she left him.
Okay, but what about the spitting? Where does the spitting come in?
Okay, so there's this story, and I don't know the
I don't know
definitive
about this
answer.
one.
I've
Yeah.
seen the video, and I can't tell what's going on. There's this. They were showing the movie at some festival. They were introducing all the actors to come out, and so they got to the point where they introduced Harry Styles. He's coming out, and he's sitting next to Chris Pine. He gets to Chris Pine, and he starts to bend down a little bit, and then all of a sudden he stops, and Chris Pine reacts to something falling in his lap. And then it's like they look at each other awkwardly for a second, and then Harry Styles sits down. Supposedly, people are saying that Harry Styles spat on Chris Pine, and I've watched the video so many times to see if I can get it, and I can't. I'm sorry, I failed everyone with my investigative skills. I cannot tell. There's other videos where people kind of highlight what's there, but I also feel like that could just be added. Like at this point, I don't know what's happening, but that's. If you watch the video, something happens in an interaction with them, and it just seems weird, and I can see why people think Harry Styles spat on him, but I just don't know. That's the spitting thing.
Okay.
So.
Wow.
And that'll end my time. Marie?
All right. Well, I think if you like thrillers, it was decent enough. My metric, as I said once before, is if I am not distracted by the rest of my life while I watch a movie, then I usually like it. But I was distracted one time with my life of a thought outside of the movie theater. But mostly I was pretty engrossed in the movie. I thought the acting was pretty good. I don't know most of those actors except for Chris Pine. I don't know them well, so I don't have a lot to base my acting opinion on their performance. I feel like Olivia Wilde was trying to make this a work of art because it was beautiful, and the costumes, and like you had mentioned before, the sets and everything. So it felt kind of artistic to me. But in the end, I had more questions than I had answers. And I generally don't like that. I don't like leaving, like the story is unfinished for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had that feeling of, well, what the heck just happened? So I have a mixed bag for this.
Fair enough.
Fair. Mm-hmm. Tim?
I'm kind of in your camp, Todd. I believe that like there's some acting that's worth watching, and Florence did do her best here. With no matter what happened on set or anything else, she brought her A game to this role when it probably needed it. I don't know if this movie would have even been as enjoyable, and it wasn't even that enjoyable, but if she wasn't trying so hard. And Chris Pine, I do agree. He just with his kind of silent charisma that he just has, just was owning any scene he was in, which works for the type of character he was playing. Just someone who's supposed to be the center of attention in wherever he is. And there's some, but not in the over, showboat way.
Sure.
He was just the guy that, like, you're just drawn to him, and you can't figure out why.
And you're also, like, you don't see him in many of those type of roles. Like,
Correct.
Like,
It was
just in
very
general.
against type for him in a way also, but yet still using what he usually brings to a movie. It was a very interesting role for I can see why he would want to do it. And then I think Harry Styles, Harry Styles, he's fine. He overdid it at times, and then he underdid it at times, and you could tell he was a singer trying to be an actor.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I don't think he was horrible. I just think he wasn't directed as well, and that might have to do with Olivia and him being in a relationship, so she probably didn't critique him much. I will say, to add to the beautiful scenery and the way they kind of cut some of the scenes in the utopianness, I thought the score and the soundtrack really helped what they were trying to do. Again, I agree with Todd that plenty other movies with this idea or a version of this are so much better. But I really thought the score and soundtrack did stand out in this, like in being utopian and happy and music of that era when it needed to be, and then also unsettling, or a little hint even in the music score that
It's
gave you
super
kind of
creepy.
a clue that something was off.
Yeah.
And I thought they did a good job of mixing that in with sudden drum beats, Hans Zimmer style, when you weren't sure something was wrong. And I thought that was really well done. It's like you could tell. I think going back to Marie's point, there was an artistry that Olivia Wilde was trying to concoct with this whole movie and try and make it like, look at this movie I made. It's really pretty. I really put all the elements together. It may not have come together the way she wanted, but she was trying. And I'll give her that. There might be other flaws with her. It has a person and all that other stuff. But she was trying here. So while I don't recommend the movie highly, I do think an effort was made here to make a good movie. It just didn't come together the way she wanted it to.
I feel like you can say that about most movies.
I think that's fair.
general.
I think that's fair. But like again, you weren't watching it going, oh, this is horrible. You're just watching it going, okay. Yeah. Oh, all right, and that's not shrug a shoulder kind of thing instead of like woo wow. So I just want to give points, like you said, to the things that did work, and there were some. It could have been better, and unfortunately, there are multiple examples of movies that are better.
Okay,
Matt, take us home.
Mm-hmm. Here we go. We're going home. Okay. Well, first I'll just say the things that I didn't like about this movie. I thought that Olivia Wilde should not have been in this movie.
Okay.
I didn't think that she added a whole lot. I didn't think her acting was great. In contrast, as most of you said, Florence Pugh knocked it out of the park. She was great. Chris Pine, agree, was great. Harry Styles shouldn't have been in this movie.
Yeah, right.
I thought he really struggled with his acting chops in this one. I think they could have had a stronger partner to Florence Pugh's great performance, and it would have made the movie stronger than it was.
Well, I think his role called for a lot, and you gave it to a guy who has not really acted at all.
Right.
Like, he's been in, like, one or two bit part things.
Exactly.
So, like, you need someone who's, like, a strong partner to what Florence Pugh's doing. And then it was like, here's Harry Styles.
And not only that, now with the distraction of all that we've heard after, it makes you actually think about, how would Shia have done here? He might have been really good. Give her. I'm not saying, but your mind is thinking that way because Harry wasn't.
I think who else could have done it? I don't like Shia.
I don't either, but I'm just saying.
I don't
the distraction
like Shia.
is there now. Yeah.
But, I mean, if we're to strip away everything and to say who's a better actor, without all the other knowledge of, like, him being a crappy human being, then I'd say I think Shia. But
I think Shia would bring it.
You can't separate the two anymore.
No,
they're entwined.
Yes.
Nor should you.
Right. But anyway, back
to... I agree completely about the soundtrack, Tim. That's a great point, and one I was going to mention as well. Yes. Especially the creepy music.
Yes.
I was like, this is like unsettling music, and it was.
That's the best word.
It was played. Exactly right. It was played to perfection.
Yes.
When it
was
needed
John
to
Powell
be.
was the music guy on this one. He did a really good job.
Nice. Well, kudos to him.
I've seen him. I've seen his name for other movies, and I feel like I also remarked at the time he's pretty good.
Yes.
Pretty reliable.
So overall, I was pretty engaged in this movie throughout, and I felt that through the use of the story building over time, I was really engaged and I was really curious about what was really going on. I was anticipating. I was like, we're going to find out what's going on. It's going to be amazing, or it's going to be something. And then we did find out what was going on, and it wasn't something that I expected. I did not see it coming. I was like, okay, that's an interesting way to go with this. I wouldn't say it's earth-shattering, but it was a different take than I feel like I've seen before on what was actually happening. I would say overall, I really enjoyed myself, maybe in contrast to some others here. But I did. I thought that there was enough good here for me to come out of it and say, I had a good time. I wasn't bored. I wasn't distracted. I was enjoying pretty much everything that I saw, at least story-wise, at least set-wise, and musically also. Some of the acting, like I mentioned, was spotty. But overall, I think it gets a good grade from me. Do you need to see it in theater? No. This isn't a theater-worthy movie or theater-necessary movie, put it that way. I think you can wait to watch this. Maybe not forever, but you can wait until it gets out of theaters. So that's what I'll say about that.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to bring it down to the most important part of the podcast here.
Yes.
In our rating system. How many
Whiskeys.
drinking
Oh.
should be involved.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with what my mind first thought of, which is how many empty shell eggs would you give this movie?
Yeah.
Which ties into, I think, my biggest problem with the movie is that you only get about 5 minutes of what normal life is supposed to be before they start doing something's wrong. And so, like, you're not invested of what things should be because you're not really shown what they should be for long enough. It was like the movie starts and all of a sudden it's like, hey, here's some eggs that have nothing in them. It's like, okay, we're off to the races a little bit. So, obviously, 0 being the worst because then you have none and you're not having any fun and whatever. 5 being the best because then 5 times you can crush an egg in your hand with no yolk, which just seems kind of satisfying. So
It does. Yeah. It does. I think she even crushes at least 5 eggs.
yeah, she
Yeah.
goes
Like
for
it.
it because she was having fun. I
Right.
can tell. Let's start with. Who do we typically start with? Matt? We typically start with Matt.
We
Matt?
do.
Sorry, I got confused there.
It's all good.
It's being in the back. I'm like,
Right. You don't know
can't
what's
worry,
going on.
darling.
I
You'll be
can't. I
okay.
can't look. To
Oh,
my
Tim!
left. Oh my gosh!
Dropping it.
Don't call me darling.
So, well, like I just said, overall I had a good time. I thought that the story was good enough to kind of elevate the movie, and some of the acting was really good, and some of the other elements were really good. So I'm going to say overall that I think this is a good movie, and I'm going to give it 3.4 empty eggs that you can crush in your little paws if you would like to do that. So,
Don't call my paws little. All right.
okay. Well, I'm just speaking to people whose paws are little, Todd.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can crush them in your giant man paws.
There we're talking. All right.
There you go.
All right, Marie.
Well, I was pretty engrossed, so that's a big metric for me, and it did what thrillers do to me and got my heart rate up and got me on the edge of my seat for a lot of it. So I was going to say 3.5.
Okay.
All right.
3.5 eggs with no contents.
We'll just say you crushed 3 in your hands and then 1
There we
fell
go.
on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that there's nothing in it, but you don't have the complete satisfaction of crushing it.
Yes.
Tim?
I also I'm going to be just under 3. I again points to Florence and Chris and Mr. Powell's soundtrack. Get me up to a 2.6, just above average, but I just feel like there's so many other movies that I would rate higher, and I would give them, and they would all have higher numbers as well.
Fair. For reasons that I've already mentioned, and I think that if they had spent 20 minutes in the beginning of the movie establishing what the status quo should be, I would have been more like engrossed. But since we were kind of off the races that something was wrong, I found myself just wanting the time to go faster because I just wanted to know what the secret was.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the other things that I've mentioned, I'm at a 2.0 is where I'm at. And I think a lot of that is not because of anything technically wrong with the movie. It just didn't hit with me. Like, I think there's ways it could have hit with me, but at the end, like, I just feel like you're shown so much imagery that never gets explained. And you're like, what was the point of all that imagery? Like, several times you're shown several things, and it's like, it never gets touched on. So, that's where I'm at. You've got to decide, hearing all of our accounts, is this movie something that you should go see in theaters?
Interesting spectrum.
Hopefully, we've steered you in a direction. If we haven't, then we failed.
That direction may be spinning in a circle, but it's a direction.
What does that average work out to?
You'll find out in the
Wait for the appropriate
end
time.
credits
Oh.
here. Yes.
Someone's trying to vie for a front seat.
Any last thoughts, parting thoughts before we wrap up?
I think we're good.
I think it's because of my job, but a lot of the movie, when we're in people's homes, I'm looking at all the furniture and I'm like, man, that goes for so much money nowadays.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money in that room.
And
right there.
there were choices made for that. Like that,
Yeah.
I'm sure they were thinking that when they were designing those sets.
Be excited for that if you're a furniture person.
If you are a furniture person, maybe this movie gains
a lot to
few-
look
If you
at.
like
few
mid-century
points.
Yeah, there's a lot to look at.
Absolutely.
decorating.
Yeah. A lot of teak.
Cheek. Okay. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies with special guests Marie and Tim.
Yeah.
And we watched Don't Worry, Darling. And we gave it an average rating of 2.875 empty eggshell eggs and that you can crumble in your hands, which is above average, but not by a ton. Some of us liked it more than others, and that's okay. We're just giving our gut reactions here. And so with that, I will thank all of our viewers. Viewers?
Viewers?
Do we have viewers?
Listeners.
Listeners, yes. Subscribers. And all the podcast people, followers in the world of podcasting. Who
Well,
follow
I
us.
think it's also important to mention that while, yes, I'm in the back seat, for this episode, Matt operated the recording device,
I did.
which is a first time,
Lots of
too.
firsts.
Yes.
So, let us know how it went.
Right.
Should we not ever do this again? Or is this the new norm and you loved it?
Yes.
Or could you
please,
tell a difference?
please let us know what it's like when I push the button to start and stop it versus when Todd pushes the button to start and stop it.
Audio sounds
It's
different.
highly scientific. There's a
Todd's-
lot that goes into
Todd's
it.
voice coming from the backseat, is it different?
There
Does
is.
it sound better?
All right. Well, on that note, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Da 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 da
Da da
da da da.
da da da.
Wait, what am I?